Hello and welcome back to Legal Connect on iBrandTV. I'm Beth Joseph, and today on the program we're looking at divorce and the many issues surrounding it. Joining us in the studio to put the issue in context is no other than the very insightful barrister Aronke Omame, also popularly known as the CC lawyer on all our social media platforms. Before we went on that break, before we now go into the children and the property and all that, you were trying to make sense of the 7 facts or something like that upon which could say, okay, one wants to apply for a divorce and the grounds upon which a divorce can be approved and those kinds of things. For those who are just joining us, we would like you to perhaps take us through that conversation again, and then we look at the children in the case of a divorce and then the property and all of that.
As I was saying, there's only one reason for divorce, and that's that I find this behavior unacceptable.
Okay.
And as I was saying, there are certain behaviors that, there are certain facts that the law has recognized. But if I do not find that fact unreasonable, if I can live with it, then the marriage hasn't broken down. So those facts are refusal to consummate the marriage.
Okay.
That the party has been one of them has been in desertion of the
Okay.
other. Now, when you talk about desertion, they could even be living in the same house. So that's the desertion. It could also be that we have been separated, living apart for 2 years, and the other party does not object to my asking for a divorce.
Okay.
It could be that we have been living apart for 3 years, and when it's 3 years, whether or not he objects, the court will grant you the divorce.
Interesting.
It could be that there's adultery.
Oh.
Now, with the issue of adultery, once you can prove that we have resumed sexual intercourse despite the fact that she knew that I committed adultery, you have already condoned that adultery. So again, there are technicalities in being divorced. If you haven't seen your spouse and you don't know where to find him for 7 years, he's presumed dead.
Interesting.
So the marriage ends that way. So for such facts, you are able to show. Or if you say that the person has behaved in a way that is unreasonable for me to continue to live with
this person.
So for instance, if my spouse is involved in drug dealing, for instance, I can say to the court, he is involved in drug dealing, he has been convicted with drug dealing, I cannot continue to live with such a person. Or he's always beating me up, I cannot continue to live with that person. This is my evidence, I have gone to hospital, or I've gone to the police or whatever. So there are, as I've said, the important thing is that you must be able to establish to the court that it has broken down irretrievably. I'm not able to continue.
Okay, now let's look at the children. Who takes custody of these children when there's a divorce? Is it the father? Is it the mother? Or what's the process? How does the court handle matters like that?
I always say to people that although in a divorce petition, you must talk about custody. They are really 2 different things. I always say mediate custody. But people think, oh, I want to go to the court, I want to expose him. Yes, if you want to expose him about his adultery, go ahead if you must. If you must. But about custody, I always think that it's better to mediate. And indeed, the courts encourage mediation concerning custody of the children. Now, a judge is somebody who doesn't know these children.
Okay.
A judge is somebody who really doesn't understand the dynamics of family life. And that's why it's better to mediate custody. However, what the law says is that it's the custody is in granting custody, the interest of children or the child is of paramount consideration. Paramount consideration are the words. Is of paramount consideration. So who determines the paramount considerations? Who determines what is paramount? And that's why I say mediate. But so the court does not have, it's not like 1 + 1 makes 2. When it comes to custody, it's a question of what you can present to the court. So for instance, I can come to court and say, I want to divorce my husband. I have a 3-bedroom flat where I will live with the 2 children. Each one will have a bedroom because the one is a girl, one is a boy. Each one will have a bedroom. The father will pay their school fees. I will do this. The father will do that. And the father can come and say, I have a 5-bedroom house. I have 2 cars. I have a driver. I have 2 maids. My mother lives with me. I will pay their school fees. Their mother is not able to. because she's not able to look after them, because the work she does, she goes at 6 o'clock in the morning, she comes back at 10 p.m. It depends on what.
So at the end of the day, it's about who is able to present a superior argument.
Exactly.
Oh, interesting. What about properties, joint accounts, those kind of things where the man and the woman have been able to come together to either buy a property and those kinds of things? Who gets what?
First of all, property belongs to the person whose name is on the title document. So if, for instance, a woman has joined her husband to buy property,
Okay.
and the woman and the title document is in the man's name, first of all, it belongs to the man.
Can that be argued out in court?
How do you want to argue it? The title document
shows that this
belongs to me. It's just like if I buy a plot of land and you give me 10 million to build it, it's still mine.
Are there cases where properties are bought in the name of both parties?
Of course, that's possible.
So what happens in such a case?
So of course, then the court can either say that one of them should live there with the children, because at the end of the day, even the settlement of property has to do with the interests of the children.
Of the children. Now, let's not think that. I believe that sometimes, people who have been divorced or separated can perhaps decide to say, okay, after spending some time apart, we think that we might want to come back. Something like that. Is this acceptable within your practice? Is this a practice that you would encourage? And if it's possible, what are the legal steps to be taken to bring about that gradual reconciliation in such a way that the parties are better off coming back and the interest of the children are also factored into it?
When I started off, I said that people don't do medical checkup on their marriages. Now, if a couple have been separated and they now decide that, we want to come back, there hasn't been a divorce. Of course, it's important for them to get counseling before they can come back. It's good that they get counseling, because whatever has caused them to have driven themselves apart, they need to understand it and understand the way to go forward, in their reconciliation. However, where there is a party, where the parties are in court already, and they say they want to reconcile, the court will promote reconciliation.
Oh.
Now, it gets even better. Where the court has declared that they are divorced, I hereby dissolve the marriage celebrated on such and such a date, they can come back.
Oh, interesting.
Because from the day of that dissolution of the marriage, they have 3 months to go and think about it.
Oh, interesting. Now, all of this information you're giving us here on set, which I personally feel very privileged that I'm meeting you in person and having the conversation directly, is it out there in the open? A
lot of non-lawyers put out information. I don't listen to non-lawyers because it's cheap information.
Are there steps being taken by, say, the Nigerian Bar Association in such a way that we're able to tame some of this information being put out by people who do not have the required experience? And
a lot of people, I have a website.
Oh, great.
www.cclawyer.com.ng.
Okay.
There's a lot of information on that website. Okay. And people are welcome to get information. There are free fact sheets.
And that information begins from before considering a divorce, when you're divorced,
and every day it is
updated.
Last night I just prepared another ebook on what is a legal marriage, because people don't even know what a legal marriage is.
So are you saying most of the marriages we have there out there are not legal?
Of course.
Can you talk us through that? Because I'm sure there are a lot of people who listen to that with a bit of shock. And somebody is probably asking himself right now, am I sure my marriage is legal? So can you talk us through that?
Well, first of all, if a marriage is not legal, if there's no problem with it, you probably will sail through life.
Okay.
Not knowing that it's not legal. However, there are people who their marriage has broken down. They have not gone to court for a divorce because they married under the statute.
Oh.
And then they marry somebody else.
Oh.
They now say they are doing traditional marriage. That traditional marriage is a waste of time. It's just a party.
Because according to the court, you're still married to someone else.
Exactly.
Interesting.
People will argue and say to you that in Lagos State there's no bigamy. In federal laws there is bigamy.
Now let's talk about another issue that has to do with names. So when for instance, someone gets divorced, is there a place for a change of name from maybe Mr.
I'm entitled to carry that name forever.
Oh. Both parties involved. You can keep the name for as long as you want to. Oh, okay, interesting. Hello and welcome back to the program Legal Connect on iBrandTV. I'm Bernard Joseph, and with me in the studio is Barrister Aronke Omame, popularly known as the CC lawyer on all our social media platforms. Barrister, once again, it's good to have you on the program, but let's dive right into it once again. The stigmatization that surrounds the discourse on divorce. So sometimes a man is probably shy, or there's this stigma in society about people who are divorced as though they failed in something really huge. Is it as bad as society makes it seem?
It's the church that makes it that way. Now, first of all, if you look at Islam, Islam does not object to divorce. Islam actually gives the way a man can divorce his wife. When I was at university, I studied Islamic law for 1 year. And it talks, an Islamic family law says, you just say to your wife, I divorce you, I divorce you, I divorce you. It's as simple as that. So Islam recognizes that it is possible. But you come to the church and they say, God hates divorce. It is true, God hates divorce. It is true, society hates divorce. It is true that anybody hates to be divorced. But the reality is that even God says, I have come to give you life and to give it to you abundantly. Now, in a marriage that is not working, you cannot have an abundant life.
In a marriage that is not working, you cannot have an abundant life. But some of our viewers might have a contrary opinion. Perhaps they feel if I keep praying and seeking the face of God, perhaps this marriage could work. But at what point would you say religion should draw the line to say, if this person continues in this marriage, there could be a loss of life or something?
Let me tell you a story. A friend of mine told me the story. Now, the church says they must not divorce. And there was this lady in her church who had a relationship with a man. And they had 3 children or 5 children or 7 children, I don't know how many. And this man, and then she became a church person. So she decided to break the relationship. And she went into a mental problem. Because she couldn't cope with the children. She couldn't cope with life. Now you say to such a person, don't divorce. Stay with your relationship. She is in a relationship where she's happier. Why do you want to stick her into a relationship she's not happy?
So what would you like to say to because again, when we listen to that, so how do we begin to change the narrative and perhaps begin to sensitize Nigerians to factor in this consideration so that the level of stigmatization begins to drop?
Well, let me say that there are more people divorcing today than there were 3 years ago. As at this week in Lagos, and when I say Lagos, I don't mean Ikeja, I don't mean Badagry, I mean Lagos. Division.
Right.
12,000 women have filed for divorce.
Interesting.
More men have.
More men have.
Between January and now. In 2018, one of the matters that I happen to know about, in January, 29th of January, 5,000 men had already filed for divorce. So we're not talking about those who are separated, who haven't even come to the court, and they are in the greater majority because of the church. What happens is, so we then do a survey of 20 such women who are separated but not divorced and who are members of the church. And we ask, what is your sex life? And they say, yes, I do have sex. The man comes in at the dead of night because of the church. So what's the church doing? The church is actually encouraging adultery.
How do we propose a round table for the law and the church or religion to have a sit down and come to more like a compromise to say, we understand what the holy books are saying, but you see, the most important instinct in every human being is the instinct for survival, to live. And is that kind of a round table possible?
For me, I think that would be a waste of time. Because just as lawyers, doctors, priests as well, they have a hold on their
congregation.
They have so those who are following me, for instance, I probably have a hold on them of some kind. Your lawyer will tell you something, and somebody will say to me, this is what my lawyer said. And you cannot move him from that position because that is what his lawyer has said. So when we come to that round table, what are we really going to achieve? Everybody's going to hold to his guns. I think that it is a personal decision for a person to say, all right, I want to get divorced. I'm a Christian. But also, there are people out there who are Christians who got divorced and who are in happier marriages today.
So, Barrister, let's look at the church, the religion, and the law as it relates to divorce. Because, sometimes, like you rightly said, the church holds a position, the court is saying a different thing, the couple themselves, they want something else. Is it possible for the church, for religion, and say maybe the law to have a sit down, like a roundtable conversation to see how we can reach a compromise in such a way that when we realize that a certain relationship or marriage is sucking life out of some people, we can then say, okay, can we take so and so steps to reconcile the issues?
I think that a roundtable conference or sitting down together will not achieve anything. But I also think that it's about time that the church has to understand that there's something called mediation.
Okay.
When a party or when a couple are going through rough times, there are ways to mediate these issues. Now, if they don't want them to come to the court for mediation, because court mediation is not the same thing as court adjudication. If they do not want them to come to court mediation, then they should train their trainers there in aspects of mediation. Now, that probably would help them to help these ladies especially to have happier marriages than they have now, if they do not want them to get to divorce. But I believe that when a marriage is dead, it is dead.
It is dead.
It's like when a person is dead, you can't wake them up anymore. But when they are still in coma, you may try.
All right. Thank you very much, the CC lawyer, for helping us put these issues in context. Of course, there's so much more we would have loved to say, but on TV, we always have limited time. We would like to have you here again to help us put the issues in context. And now back to our viewers. If you've been watching, this has been Legal Connect on iBrandTV, and today we looked at divorce and the many dynamics that surrounds that conversation. Barrister Arunke Omame joined us in the studio to put the issues in perspective, and she's been able to enlighten us and break it down for us. And don't forget, however, that if you missed a few parts of this episode, you can catch up on our YouTube channel at iBrandTV, on all of our social media platforms at iBrandTV. You can also follow the CC lawyer on all social media platforms and on YouTube as well. We will be here again next Saturday to talk about other interesting topics and the legalese and the many legal factors that surround this conversation. And that's what Legal Connect on iBrandTV aims to achieve. Once again, this is the lawyer. It was good having you on the program. We look forward to having you again next time. All right, do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at iBrandTV, and like and follow us on all our social media platforms at iBrandTV. I am Bennett Joseph, and this is iBrandTV.